And I'd like it if you would be kind enough to indulge me as I start my talk with, for me, one of my favorite poems about inner calm. And this is If by Rudyard Kipling, who says, if you can keep your head when all about you is losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. Now, that is a poem which I read when I was younger, and I thought, yep, that is what I need to do. That's how I need to manage stress. But did you know that even Rudyard Kipling, he himself had so big an argument with his brother-in-law that he was forced to leave America, his dream home, with his wife, and come back to the UK and rebuild the rest of his life there. It's not as easy to do as it is to know. Why? Well, because stress in the 21st century is psychological. It's not simply a case of a lion chasing us and then it chases someone else so we get a bit of a break. How do we get a break from thinking, I must make those deadlines, I need to do that in tray, I've got a new promotion coming up and then my friend might get it instead of me? How do we stop that when it's just going on and on inside our heads? If we were to eat poison berries that looked beautiful in the forest, we could purge ourselves of the illness. But how do we purge ourselves of toxic relationships, of the toxic people who drain our energy that maybe at some point we let in? Psychological stress needs psychological tools in order to beat it. And so I'm going to give you a series of very quick tools that you can use yourself. You can do these exercises with me. They're all tools like this within the Leader's Guide to Resilience. But give these a go. 2 of them will clear your mind. 2 of them will help you re-energize, and 2 of them will help you focus. And again, all of that is part of making us up to be who we are, which, as I said, is often far more important than anything else, especially right now. So, tool number 1, know your goal. Know what it is, have that goal. And this is a tool that I learned, you saw her, from the wonderful Sharon Lawton. So draw yourself a circle and split it into 8 different segments. And with that, write your goal down. Now, sometimes I have clients whose goals might be mental health, and they might fill it in with things like, this makes up my mental health: exercise, family, relationships, travel, career. But I'm going to actually break it down to let you use this tool for a dissertation, just because it can be adapted. So imagine your goal is to complete your first year project, third year project, an essay, let's just say. This can be broken down into different segments. You might have to do the reading first. You might have to do the note-taking. You might have to do the introduction. You might have to do the analysis. You might need to do the proofreading. You might need to do data collection, and so on. So you put down all the things that you need to do in order to achieve that goal into those segments. And then you need to mark off on a scale of 0 to 10 where you are on each of those. Now, I quite like this for a project because often I love reading. I can get up to 10 on that. That's great. Note-taking, love that too. Data analysis, actually going through it, hate it, hate it. So I often languish around 2 or 3 for those. Proofreading, hate that even more. That's usually about a 1. I try and just get rid of it and hand it in straight away. Introduction, I don't mind writing. That's about 5 or 6. The reason why you actually give yourself a visual representation of where you are on each of those segments is so you know, A, which bits you like, and B, which bits you actually need to focus on. It is too easy to keep focusing on the things that are already a 9 or a 10. Why? Because we enjoy them. We don't need the motivation to do them. But if you can actually see, you know what, to get the whole thing done, I really need to do those bits, it at least gives you that little nudge. That's where I need to focus. And then when you actually focus, all you need to think about every single day is not how do I get this 2 to become a 10, but actually how do I get that 2 to become a 3? That's all you ever need to do, is to be just a little bit better today than you were yesterday. So that's my first tool for breaking down a goal into manageable chunks and being able to have a visual representation of where you are. But of course, even then, you actually need to find the time to do all of those things. So try this as a way of working out your priorities. Draw yourself across and you'll have 4 quadrants. In one quadrant, and you can either write it down or you can write it on Post-it notes and stick it in there, is all the things that are important and urgent that you have to do. Important and urgent. So deadlines, medical appointments, those sort of things, important and urgent. In the next quadrant, write down the things that are urgent but not important that you have to do them. Next quadrant, things that are important but not so urgent. So important, you have to do them, but not so urgent. And finally, last quadrant, not important and not urgent. And this is the little phrase that I always use. And I love this tool. I use this one myself a lot. Important and urgent. Do them. Do it. That's your priorities. So do it. If it's important that you do it, but not urgent, then maybe you can delay it. So that might be, for example, you have a deadline coming up and then you haven't seen your friends for ages and they want to go out. Maybe you can say to them, well, I can't do it now, but I can do it on Saturday, or I can do it next week. That way you still get to see them. You are able to delay it to when you've got time to do it. And also, because you've delayed it and managed to get all the important and urgent things done, when you do go out with them, you actually enjoy it as well. So do it if it's important and urgent. If it's important but not urgent, delay it. But what if it's urgent? It has to be done, but it's not so important that you do it. Well, delegate. And this one is particularly important and useful for parents, because it's things like, oh, someone has to fold the washing, someone has to fill the dishwasher, someone has to cook dinner. Absolutely, someone has to. Does it have to be you? And that's the question you can ask yourself for anything. Am I just holding on to this because I really need to do it? Or am I just holding on to it because I'm afraid to let go? Ask yourself that question, because delegation is a wonderful way to connect with other people, because what it's doing is it's telling people, I trust you. I believe you can do this. And it helps you develop the skills to support them in doing it as well. So if it's urgent that it has to be done, but not so important that you have to do it, learn to delegate it. And then when you've delegated it, not only do you have more time to do the things that are important and urgent, but you may also find time to grow, to develop, to explore new areas, because you're not holding on to things that actually you no longer need to hold on to. And this last one, if it's not urgent, not important, this is the easiest of all. Delete it. And what comes under there for me is scrolling mindlessly through social media, getting myself very upset that other people are doing more than me, and those sorts of things. So simply, important and urgent, get it done. Important but not urgent, delay it. Urgent but not important, delegate it. Not important, not urgent, delete it. Do, delay, delegate, delete. That's all you need to remember. So these tools are really great for clearing your head. And you may go away and think, yeah, great, I'm going to do those, and you'll do them. You'll do them for probably a couple of days, and then the motivation will run out a little bit. You'll get a little bit tired. Maybe you just won't feel like filling that in today. Well, these 2 next tools, these are about re-energizing ourselves in order to feel motivated and feel capable of doing the harder stuff. Because the whole thing is, change is hard. It is difficult to do the things that we're not used to doing, but we know they are good for us. But nothing is as hard as feeling stuck somewhere you don't want to be. So these next two tools will help you through those times because they will re-energize you. This one, and all the speakers have talked about this one today. They've talked about the people we surround ourselves with, the external environment. It doesn't always need to be physical, as in buildings or trees or nature. It can as easily be the people we surround ourselves with too. So I'd like you to draw some cups of a hot drink, hot chocolate, tea, coffee. The reason I choose something hot is because it's warming, it feels lovely, and I like to have a nice hot cup of tea with somebody that I enjoy spending time with. Have about 3 of those cups. You don't have to have that many if you don't want to, but in each of those cups, I want you to write down the names of the people you would like to share that cup of tea, cup of coffee time with. So whatever those names are, I want you then to write down their values. So for example, as John was so kind to me earlier, I'll put his name down there. That's someone I want to share a cup of tea with. And yes, he's enthusiastic. So that's something, he's passionate about stuff. And I really, that's contagious and in a good way. And I love that. So he's passionate. He's funny, he makes me laugh. So he's humorous. And he's thoughtful. And that's something I enjoy because I learn something from him as well. So thoughtful. Now, there may be many more values that you will put in there. But here's the cunning thing that I want you to do with them. It's not simply about appreciating those things in other people, but actually working to live those values yourself. Because if you've identified them in the people you want to spend time with, unless you are demonstrating those values yourself, how can we really expect people with those values to really want to spend time with us? So think about, if I want to attract that type of person, I need to be that type of person as well. And do that for all of the names that you put down there. And every single day, work to live at least one of those values you've recognized. But there is an extra little bonus tip that comes with this. When you have recognized the people that you love spending time with, tell them. Don't expect them to know, because so many of us are so consumed with what's going on in our own lives that actually it's often such a boost to be told, you know what, you really made me smile yesterday, or you know what, I really enjoyed that. Don't expect them to know. Tell them, be that person. And the funny thing is, I do this in lectures and I tell people, text them right now, but I also have to tell them, you might need to say the trainer has told you to text them, because you're going to get a text back saying, are you drunk? And I think that's a real shame, because why do we have to be drunk before we're nice to people? Why can't this be something that we just build into our everyday lives? Why can't this be something we just build into our everyday environments? And that's something I work hard to do as well. So let them know. And the last little cheeky thing with this exercise is, if you do this often enough, so every night, think about maybe 3 people you'd like to share that cup of tea with, and do it every night for a week. You will notice the same names keep popping up, and some names don't. Spend more time with the names that crop up, and you'll be able to squeeze out the names that don't. Because the names that don't come up are often the ones that exhaust us, are often the people that make us feel drained. They're not the people we're necessarily grateful for. But if we work to be the values that we love in people, and we work to spend more time with the people who energize us, we either have more energy if we do have to see the ones that are slightly more draining, or alternatively, we may quite happily be able to say, I'm really sorry, I don't have time. So that's an extra little special tip there for the toxic or maybe more draining people who might be in our lives as well. But that's not just about other people. We need to know what energizes us as well. A lot of people talk about self-care. And when we talk about self-care, we automatically think, oh, spa or massage or going to the pub with friends. But actually, self-care means very individual things for different people. So I'd like you to think about what self-care means to you and whether it means being energized, which is the yang of self-care, or being relaxed, which is more the yin. So that's relaxed and that's energized. The reason I say this is because when it comes to having done a project, a lot of people say to me, oh, you can relax now. And I know it's kind and I know it's lovely, but it kind of winds me up, because if anyone knows me, they know that I like to be re-energized, not sit down and kind of listen to calming music and fall asleep. So know what works for you. Now, some things that go under my relaxation, because it does help sometimes when I need it, will be going out for a walk, or it might be doing some breathing exercises. And one of my favorites is just simply breathing in and repeating the affirmation to myself. Even if I can't control anything else, I can control my breathing. That's one of my favorite affirmations. So that really helps me relax, because that's so much nicer than someone saying calm down. But let's look at the energizers. Things like studying a new course, reading a book, hanging out with people who really energize me. Those are wonderful things. Listening to music, for me, they work. So what I want you to do is I want you to identify when you're enjoying something. That's the first thing. Then work out, is this relaxing me or is it energizing me? And then decide when you're feeling either very overwhelmed or very down, which is going to be the most effective right now. Because if you are feeling overwhelmed and anxious, then actually something that comes under the relaxing side will probably help. Whereas something that is energizing might actually be overstimulating. It may be too much information. And when we're feeling down, then again, we might need an energizer rather than a relaxer. Because if we're already feeling down, the last thing we want to do is keep ourselves down there for longer. So we might need to do something a little bit more energizing to get us fired up again and to focus on where it is we want to go. So think about what you enjoy, whether it's an energizer or a relaxer, and then always ask yourself, what do I need right now? And the last two tools are there to help us focus. Now, I was reading the word cloud at the beginning where you were asked what things are stressing you out right now, what things are you worrying about? And this is an exercise you can actually do with those things that you're worried about. This is known as the circle of control or circle of influence. And you think about all of the things that are really bugging you right now. And anything that you cannot control. So COVID, for example. Yes, we can wear masks, but we can't control it. We're not necessarily the scientists. This goes just in the circle of concern. So COVID, for example, might go here. Because there's nothing we can do. We're concerned about it. We're worried about it. There's nothing we can actually do about it. But anything we can actually do, then that goes in the middle. So if you are worried about your essay, that is something that you can do. You could break it down into manageable chunks like the goal wheel that I gave you at the beginning, but you can do something about that. So anything that you can actually take action over, that goes in here, which is your circle of influence. And so this might be your essays. This might be your revision. This might be applying for that job. Anything that you can influence goes in there. And that way, if you find yourself taking up all of your thinking time and energy with things that you can do nothing about, try to channel them into something where you can actually affect the outcome. And that brings me on to my last point, which relates to something someone said, and that was worries about the future, worries about the future. And a lot of us spend a lot of time thinking about the future, or a lot of time worrying, resenting, regretting the past. The key tip I can give you here is, yes, it's great to have a goal. So have an awareness of where you want to go, because that gives you a direction. In terms of the past, there's not a lot you can do to change it, but there are a few things you might be able to do to reframe it. For example, seeing yourself as a survivor rather than a victim, seeing yourself as someone who's overcome something rather than be brought down by something. But the present, right now, this is the only time we can 100% guarantee that we have got in order to make the most effect on our future. So use the present now, the guaranteed time, to do what we need to do to make the future what we want it to be. And one lovely little tip to stay within the present, and I'd like you to join in with me for this, is just simply stretch out, because we have been sitting down, remember the power poses, posture, and so on, and think about anything, one thing that you love in your life that you've got right now. Just focus on that one thing, because that's in the present. That's in the present. I want you to now stretch across your chest and think about one person that you have in your life that you love right now. And shake out, and I want you to think about one thing that you are looking forward to doing today. And then when you go and do it, really enjoy it. So to bring us back to Rudyard Kipling, he actually wrote If after he'd had time to process that fallout. He went back to the UK, he thought about it, he overcame it, he rebuilt, he kept going, he learned, and so can you. So if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And you'll triumph o'er the race you've run. There is yet a postscript, because the literary scholars among you will be saying, but that's not the actual ending. No, that is the Marie Stopes non-gender biased ending to the poem, which she did suggest to Rudyard Kipling, who kept his head and told her politely he was not going to change it. But that is the final tool I'm going to give you. If you don't like something, you can choose to change it. If any of these tools, for example, don't work for you, you can choose to tweak them. And if rather than seeing our mental and emotional fitness as simply the absence of stress or the absence of mental illness or the absence of suffering, if we can see it instead as the presence of wellness, the opportunity to grow and the ability to flourish, then resilience will allow you to, yes, cope, but it will also allow you to rebuild and then thrive.